Hello, everyone. It's episode number 23 of Questionable Wisdom with Gabriel. As always, this wisdom is questionable. That is to say, you can put questions in the comments below, either to call me out on what you don't think is correct, to ask me to clarify, or to ask me what I should cover in the next episode. So, apparently, abortion and guns. That's what we're talking about right now. Those are the two hot button issues, so I guess this is where we're going. So, I'm going to try to break down as best I can why these two arguments essentially are the same thing in their syllogistic, mathematical, logical, Boolean roots. If you boil them down, both of these controversies have a lot of the same components. So, bear with me here. This is kind of complicated, but I'm going to try to demonstrate that this isn't as complicated as you think it is. It's the job of media, society. I'm not crying conspiracy theory. It's just the way the system works to try to make things more complicated by focusing on the details of where we ended up rather than ending up dealing with the root of the reasons why we're talking about these things in the first place. So let's dive right into it, shall we? We're going to talk about strawman cherry picking. Cherry picking, I'm sure you're all aware, is an incorrect way of presenting evidence where you present this piece of evidence, and ignore all this stuff in between. That's called cherry picking. That's when you only present the stuff that agrees with what you're trying to say. Then you've got the concept of a straw man argument. This is a technical term for a logical fallacy wherein you say that members of this group are this way, so we need to treat them that way. Like if I were to say, all musicians are opposed to our way of life, they want us to live outside in mud huts. Well, that's stupid. Nobody thinks that. Nobody believes that. If I were to make such a claim, that would be a straw man argument. My straw man for musicians, who I don't like for some reason. I don't like musicians, so I'm going to use a straw man attack. I'm going to say musicians are opposed to capitalism or wealth or something. I'm going to say that they're bad for whatever reason. These people are bad. The Jews are controlling the world banking, or the Mexicans are taking away all of our labor. That's a straw man argument. It's appealing to something that isn't really there. It's just a thing that you built to try to make the other side look good by pretending that this straw man you built is the other side. So we're talking about straw man cherry picking here. Both sides are doing this. That's why both sides are doing this in both arguments. That's why these are the same thing. So you've got the controversy over abortion, which basically you've got the people who do want abortion to be legal, who identify as pro-choice, saying that to deny the right to terminate a pregnancy is to deny a woman her rights, because that's insisting that she has to exist for the benefit of somebody else, which is not legally tenable. The people who advocate against abortion being readily accessible, who identify as pro-life, their argument is that it is never ethically correct to destroy the life of a human being who has not done a particular wrong. An innocent person cannot be killed by the state or by an individual with impunity. Those are the basic arguments we're dealing with there. Then we jump over to guns. What do guns have to do with this? Everyone asks. Well, we'll get to that. So the idea behind the pro-gun side, that everybody needs to be able to own guns, is that this is necessary for protection. I got to protect my family. I got to protect those around me. I have to have a gun enabled in order to be able to do that in a society where guns already exist. If there's a crazed gunman out there, I can't stop him unless I have a gun. So everybody has to have the right to have guns. The anti-gun argument is that there are certain weapons that you shouldn't have to have. There's no reason that in Times Square you need to have a military-style assault rifle. That's not the correct setting for that. Only the people who need a particular weapon should have that particular weapon, whether that's hunters that need a rifle, whether it's soldiers that need an AK-47, whether it's a security guard chasing people off of a place where there are valuables that he's paid to protect. Only those people who need weapons should have them. This gets very much into the heart of the Constitution, saying that in the interest of maintaining a well-regulated militia, we have to we have to have a moratorium on gun regulation. It is not legal to regulate guns because we have to have militias, and you can't make guns illegal and have a militia. That doesn't even make sense. So that's the background work as near as I can sum it up. All sides will take objections to both of these because they're very brief, because this is a brief video. I'm sorry. I'm 5 minutes in already. I haven't even gotten to the argument. I gotta go fast. I've left out all the nuance. Sorry about your feelers. Moving right along. So, my argument here is that in both of these cases, what makes this interesting is we have a case of two sides arguing with each other when they're both saying the same thing. I see this a lot. My example I used about this early in this series was talking about Catholics and Protestants yelling at each other because Catholics believe in sanctifying grace and Protestants say that's bunk, and Protestants believe in the assurance of salvation and Catholics say that's nonsense. Although there is nuance, basically sanctifying grace is the Catholic Church's technical term for the assurance of salvation, and the assurance of salvation is the Protestant Church's slang term for sanctifying grace. Yes, there's nuance. Yes, I bulldozed over it. Get over it. We can discuss the nuance in the comments. I can't do it here. We're already 6 minutes in and we haven't gotten to the argument. So, abortion. In the 19th century, suffragettes, women's rights advocates at the time, argued very vehemently against abortion and proclaimed it as a social evil. Why would they do that when modern feminists are for it? It's because those feminists recognized abortion for what the evil that it truly is, which is to say that abortion exists because women are unequal. It is a symptom of women's subjugated standing in our society that they need to do that. They would not need to do that if they were healthy, safe, and this was a matter of consent. If those conditions were met, there would never be an abortion. Okay? If everyone had appropriate health care, felt safe in their relationship, felt secure financially, physically, emotionally, this would not be an issue. We would not be talking about this. And the fact that abortion does exist to those suffragettes in the 19th century proved that the situation with society's treatment of women was unacceptable. And this I can agree with. The pro-abortion side, they're saying that we have to have access to abortion because there are circumstances wherein women don't really have much of a choice, where they don't have the financial means to support a child, where they're not ready emotionally to support a child. They often cite cases of rape and incest. Why does that phrase keep coming up, rape and incest? Because that's when consent isn't part of this. So we're saying that we need a society where safety, security, stability, and consent are important for all people, whether male or female. That's the issue. That's the root of the evil. What we are arguing about is the fruit of that evil. Because women are not in a position to feel safe, secure, and provided for. And I'm going to wrap all of those words up into one overarching term I'm going to use for that, and that is loved. In a world where women are not loved and valued, abortion becomes a necessary evil. Now, the problem comes when we focus on that evil which comes out of that condition and not the condition itself, which caused the evil. That's what we need to rectify. What strawman have to do with this? I'll get to that. I'm sorry, we're 9 minutes in, and we're only halfway into the argument. Okay, guns. So the anti-gun lobbyists say that only the people who know how to use the guns and are qualified to use the guns and are authorized to use the guns should have the guns. The anti-gun law, pro-gun movement says that we need guns in order to protect people. Stop and think real hard about this. They're both saying the same thing. What I agree with is what the NRA said when it was founded, which seems to be quite different from what the NRA is saying now. In both of these cases, this comes to the problem of what people say they're standing for, not matching what they are standing for. The NRA was founded because I don't remember which general, I'll put it in the notes. A general came back from the War of 1812 and was appalled at the average American's capacity to use a rifle. He was terrible with it, had no business claiming he could defend his country with it when he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, founded the National Rifle Association in order to promote education and practice and proficiency with rifles so that man can protect his family, his property, his nation. You can't do that if you can't hit what you're aiming at. So both of these groups are saying the same thing, that only people who are proficient and authorized should be able to use guns. The NRA today, what they're actually promoting is a far cry from what they say they're promoting. They say that they promote a well-regulated militia. What they actually promote is just guns willy-nilly. And I'm sorry, I'm a Montanan, I have a lot of conservative leanings, and I would love to come down on the side of the NRA. And guys, you're letting us all down here because you're not living up to your own standards. What I want to see is a world where gun licensing is readily available and involves training, legal training, psychological training, military training, well, paramilitary training at least, and, some time at the gun range, the ability to actually hit what you're pointing your gun at. If you cannot do these things, if you don't understand the law, if you don't have the mentality to do it, if you can't hit what you're aiming at, you should not have a gun. This is a very simple licensing thing. We do it with cars. If you don't understand who goes first at a four-way stop, and you can't keep your car on the road, you don't get a driver's license. No big deal. Nobody objects to it. So it should be the same with guns, which are similarly dangerous and similarly tools. So in this case, again, both sides are saying the same thing, but they're bogged down in the details rather than the root cause of the problem. The problem is we need a well-regulated militia to defend the nation. Well, bring it on. Let's have that well-regulated militia. So then the strawman argument, this comes from the fact that both sides are throwing strawman all over the place. So you got, on the pro-abortion side, you've got, and the thing is, this is why I call it strawman cherry picking. It's not that these people they're referencing don't exist. It's that they're only referencing some of them. And those some are bad guys. And they are a problem and they have to be dealt with, and I'm not with them. Okay? I want to be clear about that. These people do exist and they are the real problem. So on the pro-abortion side, we've got the argument that, well, you say that you're all for helping babies, but are you really? Because you don't care about the babies once they're born. You don't care about the fathers that knocked up these women. You don't care about their circumstances. And yes, people like that exist, okay? They're not me. They're not all of that side. Just because you can find one person who fits your preconceived notions doesn't mean they're all bad. Just because I can find one musician somewhere in the world who wants to destroy our way of life doesn't make musicians bad. Just because you can find one person who is not willing to help and adopt and offer support, who claims to be pro-life, does not mean that's the pro-life stance. Thanks, Texas. You did us all a big favor there. Okay, now in the pro-choice side of that, you've got the pro-choice side of that, the pro-life side, I'm sorry, I covered the pro-choice side. In the pro-life side of that, you've got basically the argument that all abortions are against live fetuses and for no discernible medical reason. You have here an ethical problem that I can't really go into, but basically, if you have a pair of conjoined twins that are going to die, it is ethically acceptable to remove one of them to save the other one's life. That one that you removed is going to die, and we're very sorry about it. But sometimes it is necessary to mitigate harm. This is also true medically, and it's an argument that the pro-life side often is not seeing, and I'm very sorry about that. You've also got the problem of just definition, that when a stillborn child is being carried longer than it should have been and it's not being expunged from the body, a procedure is required to remove that corpse, which legally is defined the same way as live abortion, which is bonkers and is weighing down this whole discussion. It's messing up the whole conversation. It's bogging everything down. And we need to sort that out and get better terms before we can even talk about this. Now, flipping over to the gun side of what I'm talking about here, the straw men are pretty obvious here. The pro-gun side is basically equating everybody who owns a handgun is part of this well-regulated militia. And they're not. They're just not. I'm sorry, that doesn't even make sense. They are equating the concept of armed with the concept of able. Just because you have a gun, that means you can defend your property. Not true. You have to be able to use it. You have to know the laws involved. And then on the other side, the anti-gun movement has got the most obvious straw man I have ever seen, that them liberals, they trying to take all our guns away. Nobody ever said that. Go and read the legislation. It's there. It's available. It's your country. You can read the drafts. Nobody has ever said that. Nobody's ever going to. Understand what we're talking about. That's the stopping point in all of this. Nobody is taking the time to understand the other side's point of view. So what's my bottom line on these? Regarding abortion, I think it has always been a dangerous thing to draw a line and say, these people on this side of the line are human, and these people on that side of the line are not people. Whether that line you drew was a classist line, or a racist line, or an ageist line, or whatever that line is, gender, sex, whatever line you drew and said, these people are people because they're the correct color or age or whatever. These people are not people because they're not the correct color or age or whatever. That's reprehensible. But there is nuance, and that nuance stems from the fact that we're dealing with the fruit of the evil of inequality, that we're not treating women right, and that has to stop. And a lot of this conversation will go away once women are safe. Regarding the gun side, yeah, you're both right. We need a well-regulated militia. Let's bring it on. This well-regulated militia does not involve disarming the populace, nor does it involve arming idiots who can't understand the laws or hit what they're aiming at. That's my 2 bits. Hopefully this sparked enough controversy that we do get some discussion down below. Please keep that discussion civil and do the one thing that nobody in this country is thinking to, and that's to try to get inside the head of the person on the other side and find out why their view differs from you. Happy hunting. Thank you very much.